Hey everyone, for today's video I'll be going over the kits of all three of the new units that are going to be dropping with part 2 of the Overlord collab in JP. Jumping right into it though, starting with Momon, he's a dark demon and his slots are 6-star physical, 5-star defense, and 4-star defense or support. Really nice slots. The double defense slot right off the bat is great for sustaining. The skill gives 40 arts with an 11-second CT, can't go wrong with this. 3.6 arts a second isn't bad. The arts does 25,000 dark damage physical, and for 40 seconds, Momon and his ally to the right of himself get 100% crit rate. This is a really unique art as it isn't an entire team buff, but 2 units, so it is nice if you're trying to buff him or the other unit's crit rate. For his true art, it does 65,000 water damage physical, and for 25 seconds, it increases all allies' physical damage by 150% and accuracy by 50%. This is a really strong true art as it's a really strong physical buff paired with a solid accuracy buff, and it lasts for a really long time. Definitely really nice for any physical team or teams that are gonna run against a high evasion boss. For his super art, it does 180,000 dark damage physical, and for 15 seconds, he decreases the enemy's dark resist by 50% times the number of demon allies. So there is the potential to debuff 200% dark resist, and on top of that, it has a 180,000 damage modifier, so this is gonna do an insane amount of damage. For his passives, at or above 80% HP, his right ally and himself get 250% damage. He also gets 80% curse and blind resist. The damage passive is actually insane as he's basically giving himself and another ally free damage, and paired with his true art, he's giving more to himself and the one ally than Hazuki does after stacking 5 times, which is wild. So Momon and the other unit will do absolutely insane levels of damage. For his true weapon, it increases dark damage and skill CT recovery by 50% for 10 seconds with a 40-second CT. The passive gives Momon 2 arts a second and 5% attack. It's fairly okay, I guess. The damage is alright, and the skill CT for more arts is whatever. The redeeming factor is the passive arts, although this doesn't feel needed to be honest. In all, Momon definitely seems really strong. Both himself and another ally will get a ton of damage, and paired with his true art, everyone gets physical damage and accuracy. And then his super art has an absolutely OP dark resist debuff. And while he may seem like a supporter, his 400% damage he gives to himself is gonna make him a busted DPS as well, especially considering his super art does 180,000 damage. He's probably the best Dark Demon physical DPS, which is a first, as we've mainly seen Mono Demon Dark be magic DPS, and he seems to be pushing for physical DPS to be a part of that meta. Additionally, his double defense slots are insanely strong for sustain, since defense slots aren't too common for dark units, let alone dark demons. Paired with Diablo, demon teams are gonna be a lot harder to kill. He's definitely really strong, almost like what Narbarel does, but on steroids, although somewhat capped to physical damage if you want that full 400% damage, unless you're just okay with 250% damage, which is still OP of course. Moving on to Demiurge, he's a fire demon and his slots are 6-star magic, 5-star physical, and 4-star heal or support. They're okay slots. The heal slot is nice for a cleanse or revive, but they're fairly okay just in general. For his skill, for 8 seconds, he gets 5 arts a second with a 12-second CT, around 3.3 arts a second. Like I said, nothing wrong with an art skill, it is always nice. For his arts, it does 25,000 fire damage magic, and for 30 seconds, he reduces the enemy's magic resist by 50%. It's an average magic resist debuff. The duration is fairly long though, so cycling through his art would definitely benefit a magic team a little bit. For his true art, for 30 seconds, all allies get 100% status ailment resist, and allies get a damage barrier of 10,000 damage. It's fairly unique for sure. The barrier is okay, but the main appeal is that status resist, as that isn't a very common buff, so I could definitely see this being useful on stages that have lethal status elements, although that barrier is going to be weak if the team doesn't have some sort of damage resist. For super art, it does 120,000 fire damage magic. When he's above 80% HP, he gets 100 arts, and then for 80 seconds, he stacks all fire allies damage by 50%. This is an interesting super art as it's meant to be spammed obviously, although it's built for a fire team. But with proper art genning, this could get to some crazy levels. It does depend on animation length, and I don't really know what the exact number is, but going off of what I saw from the promo video, it does seem fairly long, like 6 to maybe 7 seconds, which should mean that at the very best he could get anywhere from 11 to 13 stacks, which is around 550 to 650% damage. I'm not sure sure if it can go higher. It probably can. I'm not really sure though. That is of course best case scenario and if he has an insane art genning support. But to be honest, it feels fairly underwhelming for 2700 arts, best case scenario for that amount of damage. That's just a ton of art gen that I feel like you're better off with other damage buffers or DPS in general. I'd even rather use Rin in this scenario as she can max her damage stacks in only 1000 arts, and then she has magic damage up, magic resist down, fire resist down, damage resist down, as well as AoE arts for fire units on her skill. But anyways, for his passives, he gets 80% damage and 20% equipped CT speed when he doesn't have status elements. He gets 30% heal amount up and 50% damage up to humans. The 80% damage and 20% equipped CT speed isn't terrible to be honest. It'll make him do a good chunk more of damage, and faster equips is always nice, although his super art having a 120,000 damage modifier is insanely low for a super awoken unit, so it doesn't really feel like he'll be a main source of damage, although I'm sure he could put up some numbers when he's maxed. His true weapon increases fire damage by 60% for 10 seconds, and arts by 30 on the first use, with a 50-second CT. And for the passives, when used by Demiurge, he gets 2 arts a second and 5% defense up. It's kind of just okay. The passive arts is solid like always, but it does feel slightly underwhelming. It's not terrible though. Overall, for Demiurge, he feels very kind of underwhelming. They definitely wanted him to be a very damage buffing oriented unit on fire teams, while giving him some sort of endgame viability with his status ailment resist on true art, but he feels very lackluster. They somehow made him more arts hungry than Rin, and best case scenario, to get to the same amount of damage that Rin gives to every element, it'll take him 2100 arts, and worst case scenario 3000 arts to get to that 300% damage, whereas it only takes 1000 arts with Rin, not even including her super art, which gives her 150% magic damage up for the team. And even then, Rin is an element locked damage wise. Not to say Demiurge is terrible, some shenanigans can definitely be pulled off on a fire team, but I feel like it takes way too much support for damage buffing that can be easily achieved by another unit to clear a quest in a significantly shorter time. We'll have to see how he performs when he drops though, although I am interested to see how him and Rin perform when paired together. But anyways, moving on to the final unit, Evileye. She's an Earth Demon, and her slots are 6-star magic, 5-star support, and 4-star magic or defense. The 6-star magic slot is alright, and the support slot is really good. Gotta love units with a 5-star support. The 4-star magic is kind of devastating to be honest, as the defense slot is going to be a lot better for sustain, and it being locked to LB7 is unfortunate, but for skill it gives 20 arts or 40 when not afflicted by status elements with a 12-second CT. It's around 1.6 arts a second at worst or 3.3 at best. It's alright, it's pretty average. It is kind of funny though how all 3 units got art gen skills, not that I'm complaining of course. As for her arts though, for 25 seconds she increases all allies damage resist by 20%, and for Earth allies they get 40% damage resist. This definitely was a little unexpected, not gonna lie, but that's insanely good to be honest. A base damage resist buff is really invaluable, especially in the end game, and even more so on Earth comps. Although Mono Earth is kind of suffering as there's only 5 Super Alk Earth units including herself. Maybe a combo of War God Fen, Valentine's Lisa, Sagiri, and Evileye could be interesting for Mono Earth, but again, Mono Earth hasn't really had a lot of love, so this art is going to be a lot better when it can be used on a solid Mono Earth team, as it's literally just a free general 40% damage resist buff. As for her true arts, it does 50,000 earth damage magic. For 60 seconds, she increases her attack by 150% and gains flinch resist. This is an interesting true art. The hefty attack buff is really nice as it'll really allow her to maximize her total damage output. The flinch resist was an interesting choice as she doesn't have a cleanse, so it'll only really benefit herself if there's any other status elements on the stage. Accuracy or maybe some arts would have been better, although that would probably make her too similar to Miyu. For her super arts, it does 150,000 earth damage magic, and for 20 seconds, all allies get 6 arts a second and 200% magic damage. It goes without saying that this is insane, as an unconditional 120 arts is great for teams. It's definitely very reminiscent to Holy Knight Roy's super art, not as much arts, but in the sense of art genning and damage buffing. It's a very rare niche that's barely filled by any units, so rather than running a unit that buffs just magic damage and would take from the team, Evileye could be ran, while also providing art gen back to the team. This is definitely a huge break for Earth magic DPS, as the Earth element has been dominated by physical DPS for the longest time, and she's now probably the strongest Earth magic DPS, and it's not even close. You can maybe argue Valentine's Lisa, but she's hardly a DPS. As for her passives, when she's leader, all Earth allies get 100% damage for 100 seconds, and she also gets 80% disease resist and 50% damage to beasts. The 100% AoE damage for Earth allies is great obviously, as it'll make her and other Earth DPS feel really strong for a quick burst at the start, although in any longer content it'll run out by the time you reach the hardest stage. The beast damage is nice I guess too. As for her true weapon, it decreases the enemy's earth resist by 30% for 10 seconds, or 50% if the user is a demon with a 50-second CT. When used by Evileye, it increases arts by 100 at the start, and then has 5% physical evasion. It's a unique equip for sure. It's the highest earth resist debuff on a magic equip before Haruto's true weapon, so that is cool. This could definitely be solid on her to allow her to easily pop her super art early on to get the team rolling. No passive art gen isn't the best, but it can be forgiven considering she art gens for the team and isn't particularly arts hungry. In all for her, she's definitely looking really nice. In my opinion, she's definitely the best overall unit on the part 2 banner. She can art gen, buff magic damage, give damage resist, as well as do a good chunk of damage herself. She also buffs Earth allies damage even more from her passive, and her solid slots make her not terrible. In the current meta, I don't think she'll really be able to reach her full potential, as she'll work best in a mono Earth magic team. Mono Earth doesn't really exist right now, and what does exist of it is dominated by physical DPS, so she'll definitely age better the more units that come out to complement her. But even then, she's still really good, as she provides a base 20% damage resist on art even if you're not an Earth unit, and then a general 200% magic buff. She'll definitely make a lot of teams work, and I feel like she'll be really fun to work with. But anyways, that's about it for the entire video. This has definitely been one of the longer videos I've made in a while, but I made little chapters if you want to scroll through the units and such. As for all of the units, they seem very unique, and for my rating, the best unit is definitely Evileye by far, as she's very team oriented, provides arts, damage resist, and can DPS if needed. Next up would definitely be Momon, as his damage buffing is unmatched, and it's quite literally instant and the freest damage buffing I've ever seen, even if it is locked to himself and one other. But generally speaking, you'd only need one DPS, so it shouldn't really matter, although that physical damage being AoE is really good. The double defense slot is really rare as well on a Dark Demon, so that'll make him invaluable in sustain comps. He also lowers Dark Resist by a ton, and he has an accuracy buff, so he's definitely entirely focused on buffing everyone else and debuffing the enemy, although technically he can go psycho with his own damage considering he benefits from the damage buffing too, so you're basically able to run 2 insanely strong DPS, and him being physical makes him fill that rare role of a Demon Dark physical DPS. I think he'll age really nicely, and he'll definitely be used in a ton of fast comps considering how easily accessible his damage is. But finally, for last place, Demiurge. I'm not really too impressed with his kit. He's built for sustain, but takes way too much help for something that can either A, be achieved by another unit with less damage but faster, or B, have someone else that provides more to the team that allows the run to go quicker anyways. Because as we saw with Momon, his passive gives what would take Demiurge 1100 arts, which is then locked to fire units, but after Momon's true art, it'd take Demiurge 1700 arts to reach that 400% damage, while it only takes Momon 200 arts to reach his full damage building potential. Maybe someone will find a comp that works for Demiurge, but he seems like too much work when you could slot someone else in, case in point Rin, who I do think is a lot better and easier to run. Let me know what your thoughts are about all the units down below though. Are you going to be chasing anyone? Because I'm personally hoping for Evileye or Momon, maybe even more so Momon just for his damage buffing potential. But anyways, if you did enjoy, be sure to like and sub for more. Thanks for watching, as this one took me a little while to make, so I do hope you enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys later.